This is CBC Vancouver News.
Police investigate after data was stolen from a rape crisis center.
It's hard to recall data once it's in bad hands.
The fear sensitive information may have been stolen. Plus, a faster way of getting around Surrey and Delta.
Fast service hoping for, because the 319's super slow. So hoping for way faster service.
TransLink unveils a new express bus along one of the region's busiest routes, and the rush to save lives in Japan as a series of powerful earthquakes destroys tens of thousands of homes. Good evening, I'm Michelle Ghoussoub. Dan is away tonight. Cybersecurity experts are warning of serious privacy concerns after sensitive data was stolen from a Vancouver Rape Crisis Centre. Police confirmed to CBC News they're investigating the incident at the Salal Sexual Violence Support Centre. Yasmin Ghaniya has more on what we know.
Emails obtained by CBC News show on December 3rd, a backup server was stolen, among other items, from Salal's under-construction office. The server contained information of previous and current clients, as well as donors. It is possible that your name, email address, telephone numbers, and notes about safety risks or what services you have requested could be released, sold, and shared publicly, reads the email to clients. The stolen server also contained donor bank account details, including names, addresses, phone numbers, and photos of checks. Salal told clients and donors that the risk of data being stolen or misused is low because accessing the data requires sophisticated IT knowledge. But cybersecurity experts say the center seems to be downplaying the threat.
Most of the time, these people are connected, very well connected to different cybercrime groups, or if that is not the case, they can go to the dark net and dark web and easily connect to the forums that are used for buying and selling data.
Experts say the data could be used to drain bank accounts, commit fraud, or conduct phishing scams.
It's hard to recall data once it's in sort of bad hands.
He says the incident at Salal should be a wake-up call for organizations working with vulnerable people to be proactive about data security. One woman who says she sought counseling services at Salal tells CBC News she's filing a complaint with BC's privacy watchdog over the breach. Dalia Israel, Salal's executive director, declined an interview request from CBC News. In a statement, she says Salal is doing everything possible to protect its data from future thefts and does not believe this break-in was targeted at the center or survivors. Yasmin Ghaniya, CBC News, Vancouver.
A Vancouver lawyer accused of filing a groundless pseudo-legal lawsuit against her neighbour over a glass deck divider has been banned from practicing law in BC, while the province's Law Society investigates a complaint. It happened when lawyer Naomi Arbabi filed a lawsuit accusing her neighbour Colleen McClelland of trespassing by installing a private divider on her rooftop condo deck. She said her claim was based on the law of the land and not on legal codes, acts, or statutes. She asked for compensation of $1,000 a day for every day the glass divider was in place. McClelland went to the BC Supreme Court to have the lawsuit thrown out, arguing the lawsuit is an example of an organized pseudological commercial argument, which is a debunked and unsuccessful class of legal theory. A decision has not yet been released. TransLink has launched a new rapid bus service between Surrey and Delta. The route is part of a long-term plan to bolster public transit options in Metro Vancouver. As John Hernandez reports, TransLink says the route will increase passenger capacity by 20% on the busiest bus corridor south of the Fraser.
There's a new bus in town, and these riders are hoping it will shave valuable time off their commute.
Fast service hoping for.
Melissa Grubb is about to hop on the R6 for the first time, a new rapid alternative to the 319, which runs between Scott Road Station to the Newton Exchange in Delta.
The 319's super slow. Well, I usually take it during rush hour, so it takes you half an hour just to get up the hill there. That's like 4 stops maybe. So I'm hoping that'll get nixed by this one.
TransLink unveiled the new bus on Tuesday, which has fewer stops, all-door boarding, and even Wi-Fi.
This express service will make room for 20% more people and make commutes faster by up to 10 minutes in each direction.
The Scott Road route is one of the busiest in the region, with up to 30,000 riders a day. Many say they're already noticing a difference.
Time is money, so that's why how much time saved, it will be help us to do more work and also get help to relax at home.
They come to on time without wasting any time. So I think these buses are good, especially for the international students.
Ridership across Surrey has surged, currently at 120% of pre-pandemic levels. Advocates say the R6 is a step in the right direction, but more investments are needed to keep up with the city's rapid pace of growth.
We know that immigration is going to continue to come to the city of Surrey, and we know that everyone going into single passenger vehicles is not going to help, one, our environment, and two, congestion as is quite a problem here.
Surrey is expected to be home to the region's first bus rapid transit, or BRT, route. The mayor hopes it will be in service within the year.
The growth in our community has been extraordinary over the past decade, but certainly now transit is what is needed absolutely the most.
A long-term plan to speed up daily commutes, as this region's growth shows no signs of slowing down. John Hernandez, CBC News, Surrey.
A BC trucking company that was suspended after an overpass crash in Delta last month can still operate its Alberta trucks in this province. Chohan Freight Forwarders' BC fleet of 65 commercial vehicles were grounded after its truck caused significant damage. The Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure says Chohan operates in Alberta as a separate entity, and its fleet of Alberta registered vehicles are regulated by that jurisdiction, adding that generally speaking, carriers from one province may operate in other jurisdictions provided they carry the appropriate insurance. BC Assessment has released its annual list of property values across the province. Justin McElroy goes through what's up, what's down, and just how much the most expensive property in the province is valued at.
The 2024 property values are out for every single home in British Columbia. Here are 5 things you need to know. First, property values didn't change that much for most people in this province. Here is a chart. In the biggest cities, they stayed pretty stable, especially when you consider the big gains during the previous 2 years, when interest rates were low and selling prices surged. Second, the places where values surged most by percentage were actually in some of BC's smallest communities. Zabalos, Temblor Ridge, Haida Gwaii. These are places that are hard to get to and often have boom or bust cycles. But last year, at least, some very small communities had a bit of a boom. Third, life continues to be good if you're Chip Wilson. The Lululemon founder continued to have the most expensive property in the province, with his Point Grey Road waterfront mansion now valued at $82 million. And he's in good company, or at least rich company, because 18 other homes on Point Grey Road made the list of the 100 most valuable homes in the province. In fact, more than 3/4 of the top 100 list were in 5 very specific areas in Metro Vancouver, from West Vancouver to Shaughnessy. And finally, you might think your yearly property assessments have an impact on your property taxes, but they really don't. In reality, how much your taxes go up or down depends on whether your city council passed a budget with higher taxes, and whether the value of your home went up or down compared to all your neighbors. Which means that for most people in this province this year, property value notices are more a case of bragging rights. Or, if you're concerned about affordability, perhaps lamentation. Justin McElroy, CBC News, Vancouver.
The unusually warm start to winter has meant not much snow at ski hills across the province, taking some charm off the holiday season for the local skiing community. CBC's Early Edition host Stephen Quinn spoke with a climate expert to understand what's causing this shift in weather pattern.
In the Pacific Ocean, there are 2 sort of climatic oscillations that occur. One that is well known, the La Nina El Nino cycle. And then there's a larger cycle that can last for up to decades called the Pacific Decadal Oscillation. And it has a warm phase and a cold phase. We're in the cold phase, luckily. If we move into the warm phase with an El Nino, things could be worse. And that's possibly what could happen for next winter.
Pidwirny says January is expected to remain cold before warmer weather returns for February and March.
I think for a lot of us who are in the winter sport, we're recognizing that climate change is happening, but also recognizing that, it's nature, it's what Mother Nature is doing, and we have no control over. So all we can do just honestly just wait and hope that, that the snow comes back and we can be able to do something on the mountain, because right now, a lot of our programs on standstill.
Kasyama says lack of snow has forced her group to push their programs further back into the winter.
How do we ensure that the people that are going to the gym are actually getting the long-term benefits of this? How do we track that?
After the break, why some fitness industry experts are calling for a tax credit to offset the cost of a gym membership, and those who can benefit. Stay with us. Thanks for watching our commercial-free live stream. A Toronto startup is developing new technology that it says will make train travel as fast as plane travel in the next decade. And as Ali Chiasson tells us, the company, Transpod, is hoping its innovation will reshape transportation in Canada.
Transpod is an ultra-high-speed transportation system being developed in Canada to carry passengers between cities at over 1,000 kilometers per hour.
In a city where transit projects miss deadlines and hemorrhage money amid low ridership and inconsistent service, it's hard to imagine such a high-tech, high-speed commuter future.
We're magnetically levitating it, and we have special engines and special power systems. It's fully electrically powered, but we have this crazy technology using plasma to get power to the vehicle.
To understand how it works, let's go to a model of one of the arm mechanisms that will line the outside of the vehicle.
Imagine my arm is the power rail, like on a subway or a streetcar or a high-speed train, but this thing does not want to touch it. It wants to stay exactly at the right distance there, even when the vehicle is going up and down a little bit or side to side. And so with the special technology that we have, you don't see it here, we create that plasma with very high voltages.
That glowy stuff, that's the plasma. To dumb it all the way down, essentially it's achieved
with some very fancy control systems and physics.
The vehicle looks like a plane without wings and would travel along an elevated structure.
The Transpod line is pretty similar, most of it, to the Vancouver SkyTrain.
Downtown stations will be serviced at reasonable speeds. It will kick into high gear to get out of town, to the airport and beyond.
Quebec, Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto, and then Detroit and Chicago. That would be the ultimate goal.
The amount of time it would take between cities on a Transpod train would be about the equivalent to how long it takes to fly from one to the other. Transpod also aims to be privately funded.
Because we can mix both freight and passengers.
And even though it's a homegrown innovation from the brilliant minds working out of a West End Toronto warehouse, it's the government of Alberta who signed on to build the first test track between Calgary and Edmonton.
And what does that say?
It's interesting when it comes to be open for business, and the culture, the entrepreneurial spirit is stronger in those regions.
But as long as Transpod has some wins on the test track, this could be the next big Canadian tech triumph.
We have some of the top physicists, engineers in all of these different fields, from aerospace sector, from the railway world, from construction, and we're really combining all of those key experts in the talent pool to make this a reality. We're trying to be that hive of innovation.
Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
Investigators in Japan are trying to determine how two planes at one of Tokyo's biggest airports ended up on a deadly collision course on the runway. Lindsay Duncombe shows us the chaotic moments from inside that passenger plane and why quick thinking likely saved lives.
At first, panic. 379 passengers and crew jolted when their Japan Airlines jet collided with the smaller plane on the tarmac as it landed. Flames fed by wind and jet fuel ravaged the aircraft.
We heard that big bang, and I saw that flame that was making a trace, and then we saw the plane that was inflamed.
Panic, though, gave way to action. Everyone on board escaped within minutes.
And this crew is amazing that they got everybody out of there so quickly by just channeling them through the aisles. They were conscious, they were ready for any kind of accident.
I can only say it was a miracle, says this passenger. We could have died. 5 people on board the smaller plane were killed. Members of the Coast Guard on their way to deliver aid to earthquake victims. The only survivor, the pilot, was injured. The busy airport was closed for hours after the crash.
I was shocked. I mean, these kinds of accidents aren't supposed to occur, especially in a place like Canada.
Tragedies compounding as the scope of the damage from Monday's earthquake becomes increasingly clear. Roads to the hardest hit area, a city of 27,000, cut off. Crews work to find and rescue people who may be trapped. This earthquake is Japan's strongest since 2011, when a tsunami triggered a nuclear meltdown. This time, the power plants are secure. Some comfort, at least for those out of their homes, bracing for what could come next. People at this shelter aren't sleeping, though. It's because people have trauma, the operator explains. Even if it shakes a little, they become very anxious. Aftershocks are expected and could last for weeks, even months, prompting fear of yet more tragedy for people already dealing with so much loss. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Vancouver.
Some fitness industry experts say the healthcare system suffers when Canadians are out of shape. Now they're calling for a national tax credit to offset the cost of a gym membership. As Renee Filipponi explains, it may not help those who need it most.
Awesome job! At Orange Theory Fitness in Edmonton, it's all about motivation. Get those feet moving! The fitness industry, hit hard by the pandemic, is still recovering, and now inflation is weighing on it too.
But at the end of the day, it's costing them dollars, and if they, you know, if they're thinking that they don't have the dollars to put food on their table, it's one of the things that does unfortunately have to go, and so it's the #1 reason that we have people quitting today.
Yeah. The fitness industry is calling on the federal government to include gym memberships as a medical expense on their taxes to make it more affordable.
Any incentive is an incentive to get people started.
They also point to research that working out improves health and can reduce the strain on the healthcare system.
We are in a healthcare crisis, and there's a 2023 report published in the Canadian Journal of Public Health that actually states that in Canada, due to sedentary behavior, we are losing $2.2 billion.
A tax credit is already offered in Newfoundland for things like swimming lessons and gym memberships, valued at $348 per family. Ottawa says it's committed to helping Canadians become more active, but when asked about a tax rebate, it pointed instead to its $10 million investment in programs like Participaction to increase daily physical activity.
On some level, does this line the pockets of big corporations?
This SFU researcher says a tax credit won't necessarily help low-income Canadians who often struggle to find time for the gym or can't pay the costs up front.
If we think about, beyond the scope of, let's say, low-income Canadians, we're also thinking about, well, how do we ensure that the people that are going to the gym are actually getting the long-term benefits of this? How do we track that?
For these gym regulars struggling with the soaring cost of living, any break is welcome.
This is going to be so much less money for the fitness I spend, and so much more money I can put into groceries and household spending.
Work for that distance! Helping to pick up the fitness pace this year. Renee Filipponi, CBC News, Vancouver.
A report from the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives says Canada's 100 top-paid CEOs have already earned what the average worker makes all year. As Philippe de Montigny explains, a wealth tax is one of the solutions being proposed to address the pay disparity.
Canada's top CEOs made more than ever before in 2022, a year of sky-high inflation.
CEOs are paid primarily through bonuses, and those bonuses are based on things like revenue and profits. And they are being remunerated as if every dollar of these inflation-driven profits are their doing.
A new report from the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives found that the 100 highest paid CEOs raked in nearly $15 million on average that year, about 246 times what the average worker made.
It's absolutely enraging.
Canada's largest private sector union says this growing pay gap and the rising cost of living has been pushing workers to demand higher wages.
You have seen workers rising up against that. This is why we're having more disputes in Canada. It is why there is more conflict at collective bargaining tables, because workers have said enough is enough.
The higher the risk, the higher the compensation.
Asni Zawali is the CEO of Connected Labs, a tech startup in Toronto that designs virtual campuses for universities and large organizations. He says top executives shoulder a lot of risk.
Their role is to ensure the financial and operational viability of the company. If they do that, they get compensated accordingly. If they don't do that, they get fired.
But his company has a policy to limit the wage gap.
The highest salary is never 10 times higher than the lowest salary. There's no cap on the highest salary, as long as you move the lowest salary up as well.
To address the pay gap, the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives suggests introducing a wealth tax and adding new income brackets at the top that would be taxed more heavily. Philippe de Monsigny, CBC News, Toronto.
Here's a live shot of Harbour Centre in downtown Vancouver. Russ Lacate will have your full forecast next.
So that was my favorite meme of the year. She is laughing nervously and kind of saying like, yeah, like, oh, I guess this happened. I guess I relate to it, maybe. I laugh nervously and promise things, maybe. And I just think it works for everything. It's so funny.
This is my meal. I call this girl dinner.
Girl dinner. A TikToker just released a picture of like some cheese and some crackers and some grapes and pickles and called it girl dinner. And suddenly, everybody in the world started sharing, I've been eating girl dinner for years. That you don't have to go home and make some big, fancy meat and potatoes dinner. In fact, I'm not even that hungry. I think it just freed up a lot of people who are already doing this, but didn't know it was okay because we're all so judgy of our own selves and lives. So girl dinner is my favorite meme of 2023.
I'm proud of you. You made a lot of progress. I know it hasn't been easy. Doing more than you realize.
That was Anthony Vincent Official. He's singing, as you could hear, some pretty intense metal. But the lyrics are really uplifting and nice. It says, I'm proud of you. You've made a lot of progress. I know it hasn't been easy, but you're doing more than you realize. I'm proud of you.
So my favorite meme was actually sort of a thematic compilation of multiple memes, all of them focused on the rising up of orcas, primarily starting with them taking down luxury yachts. And I feel like, you know, we're all the orcas some days. And there's a lot going on in the world that some of us would like to rise up and rebel against. So for me, sort of the triumphant evolution of orca hate against capitalism felt righteous and groovy.
My favorite meme of the year is kind of obscure, but I'm a dog owner and love to make fun of the fact that me and many dog owners take pictures of our dogs doing silly things and looking at them constantly. And so this meme was a guy who discovered his dog sleeping on a pillow, took a picture, and then becomes addicted to looking at the picture over and over and over all day and crying or smiling, which is basically how it is.
So this one is an Instagram reel. It's a person showing their dogs in various crocheted hats that they have made for them, and it's quite. There's a lot there. I'm just looking at them now. There's radishes, rainbow, a Mardi Gras pom hat, cranberries, a chick, oranges. It just goes on and on and on. And what I love about this meme is just the fact that this person has managed to make so many hats for their dogs. And when I come home and it's late and I'm tired, I just want to see a dog in a crocheted hat.
Hey, I'm Johanna Wagstaff.
And hi there, I'm Rohith Joseph.
And we're asking for 10 minutes of your day to go through the 10 things that the UN recommends we can all do when it comes to climate change.
Please don't leave.
No.
And also, the things aren't new.
We are just wired to not do them.
We promise you to help you figure out your brains, and you and your people can make better choices to combat climate change.
10 Minutes to Save the Planet is available now on CBC Listen and everywhere you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell. Here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
Stream your favorite CBC dramas or comedies 24/7 on demand on the CBC Gem app. Plus, you can live stream CBC Vancouver News. Check it out at gem.cbc.ca. And never miss a special programming series or contest. Subscribe to CBC Vancouver's e-newsletter at cbc.ca/Vancouver inbox and keep connected with us.
It was another good night for the boys in their very first game of 2024.
Feeds back to Hughes. Here's Miller. Pedersen, one-timer, deflected in off the Ottawa defenseman.
The Canucks beat out the Ottawa Senators with a score of 6-3. Playing on home ice tonight, Pedersen and Suter each had 2 goals. As a result of this win, the Canucks are now 3rd in the league. And a fun Canadian fact, Nickelback frontman Chad Kroeger and the great one Wayne Gretzky were there to soak in the win.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
And meteorologist Russ LeCate joins us now for a look at the forecast. We've been hearing hints that a cool down could be coming. When can we expect those cooler temperatures?
I think locally, Michelle, probably not going to notice a big difference till we get to the weekend. But where it's happening is going to be province-wide, and it's the colder Arctic air that's leaking down from the north. It'll show up in the next day or so around areas like Fort Nelson into the Peace Country as well. A couple of days after that, showing up into parts of the central interior. The Arctic air never quite reaches its way to the south coast, but all the same, we start to see the influences of that. And right now, with that high-pressure ridge sort of set up over most of the province, really lazy weather pattern over most of the interior regions. Some very light flurries show up at times during the day tomorrow, but not much to speak of, maybe less than a centimeter into Prince George and Williams Lake, just on either side of the freezing mark. Colder in Fort Nelson, your high tomorrow -17, Fort St. John at -11. By this weekend, those highs in the northeast corner of the province, they'll be -25. And of course, across the central part of the country, province, dropping by about 10 or 15 degrees. Our local forecast for parts of the southern interior and the south coast, really subtle changes tomorrow. Lots of stubborn cloud around. The temperature still managing to rebound a couple of degrees onto the high side of 0, and it's sort of mixed rain and snow showers. But I've got this nice graphic I want to run through for you here to give you an idea of the changes that are on the way. This one here is for tomorrow. So it's just, again, a little light rain around, a little light snow into the interior. On Thursday, more wet weather on the coast, snow only on the local peaks. The freezing level is not low enough yet. Friday, it does start coming down. We'll start to see that snow really accumulating on the local ski hills, and of course, for parts of the interior as well. This weekend is when it turns colder in Metro Vancouver and all the neighboring areas. It clears up as well. That sets us up for something rather interesting at the start of next week. Maybe a little lowland snow, even for parts of the lower mainland. Fingers crossed, it could get interesting.
We'll be watching. Thanks, Russ. And that is your late news for this Tuesday. Thank you for joining us tonight on day 2 of 2024. For news anytime, visit our website, cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1. That starts tomorrow morning at 5:30. Good night.